Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Midland Cultural Center, and welcome to A Day in the Life. Now, here is the host of A Day in the Life, Fred Hacker.
Well, good evening, and welcome to the Midland Cultural Center. Welcome to A Day in the Life. My name is Fred Hacker. I am the host and community producer of this program, and we're delighted to have you with us. I do want to introduce our very special guest. He may be the finest athlete that Midland has ever produced. He has been a beloved teacher, a coach, a referee, involved in many of our community organizations as an administrator, and he has been involved in so many aspects of our community that you will not believe what you're about to hear tonight. He's been a major influence in the lives of many of the young people of our community as well, and he's here as our guest tonight. Please join me in welcoming Chester Graham. How are you? Have a seat, Chester. Welcome.
You're right, you can't see anybody else.
Yeah, it's intentional.
Yeah. I can't see where the eggs and tomatoes are coming from.
Yeah, well, you'll feel them.
Okay.
So let me, first of all, welcome you. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. It's always fun to do this program with somebody with whom I have a kind of a shared history. And, you and I have a shared history. You were always the star, and I was the 12th man on the bench. We were on a lot of the same teams, but you wouldn't remember that except in the dressing room because I didn't get on the floor.
Not always true, Fred. Not always true.
Chester, what we try and do with this program is use your life as an inspiration for our audience who are here in the theater with us tonight, and we have a full house, which is wonderful. And we also inspire the people who watch this later on Rogers Community Television or on one of the YouTube or channels that we have here at the MCC. So we also want to explore what your inspirations have been. So you're going to inspire us, but we also want to know what's inspired you. And I want to begin, I'm going to do this a little chronologically.
Okay.
I want to begin by asking where and when you were born.
Born in the small place called Toronto in 1947, and thank goodness my mother and father decided to get out of Toronto, and we moved to Midland 1953.
Well, let's talk about your mother and father. By the way, do I have oh, there it is. Yeah. We've got some pictures, and I want to talk about your parents. And you recognize any of those people? It's right up here in front if you want to look.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. I got it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I recognize those three people.
Yeah. Tell us about your mom.
My mom was the person in charge.
Okay.
She was the smallest in the family, but she was in charge. When Mom wanted something, it was done. There was no back talk. There were no questions about it. You just did it. With Dad, we had a little more flexibility.
Okay. Now, your mom's here.
My mother is here. I'm glad that she is still with us.
Would you stand up? Yeah. Yeah.
That's my 96-year-old mother.
Wonderful.
She's just like a Timex watch. She keeps on ticking.
Yeah. By the way, they've got a kid on their lap. Are we supposed to know him?
I think that was their firstborn of 5, and he came along in 1947.
Yeah. Tell us about your dad. What?
Dad was a wonderful model for me to follow. A great parent. Both Mom and Dad gave up a lot for us. We all were involved in minor sports throughout the seasons, and we never once could not attend because Mom and Dad worked so hard. to give us those opportunities. And Dad saw Midland when he came up as a youngster, camped in Little Lake Park with his father, and it was, in my early days, we stayed in Little Lake Park and then Steers Cabins before Mom and Dad said, let's get out of here. We moved to Midland. What a great choice they made. And I'm
I can
grateful.
vouch for that because I remember your dad coached us in a lot of sports.
Yes, he was.
But your mom was always there. And,
always there.
Always
yeah.
supportive, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about your siblings.
I have, there's the three musketeers. Brother Rick, yours truly, and Brother Lloyd. And all three boys, two of them are here. Lloyd couldn't make it. Lloyd's had some health issues recently. He's in Peterborough. And after that family outing, Brother Brent and Brenda joined the family. So we had 5 children growing up in that 2-bedroom house on Bay Street. I don't know how we managed it, but we did.
Yeah.
We did.
Now, your education began at a primary school in Midland. Tell us about your beginnings in the education game.
I was a student of Regent Elementary School. I went to kindergarten there for a month of June in 1953 when we moved to Midland, and then the rest of my schooling was there. The irony, Fred, is that I attended Regent School, I taught at Regent School, and the school's been demolished. Later on,
I understand there's a connection.
I'm not finished. Later on, I went to MPDHS. They changed the name to MSS. I was a student. Then I taught there, and they've knocked that building down too. So there's some issues there.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to invite you to not come to my home.
Yeah.
Now, what were your interests when you were in primary school?
In elementary school, my sole being forever and ever has been sport, and I've been involved in many sporting activities through my years, elementary and secondary. At elementary school, we got heavily involved in basketball and in track and field as a student, but also I was involved with music and participated and competed a few times in the Midland Music Festival run by the Midland Wiseman's Club, which I still believe they are doing today. So that was back when I was in grade 4 or 5. We were singing solos, duets, triple trios, etc. in the music festival. So music and sport were my livelihood back then.
And during that time, the YMCA played a big part in your life, basketball.
Absolutely.
We have a picture here of
there we are. There we are.
Questionable group.
Very questionable.
Kid in the back row left is cute, though, isn't he?
The back row, let me have a little better look. Oh, yeah. You recognize that guy? Yeah.
And how about that guy second from the left in the front row? Pretty serious look on his face.
Yeah. The basketball was bigger than I was in those days. Yeah, basketball, YMCA basketball, that's where we lived. We lived our life at the YMCA, and it was Lloyd Sackos who brought us along in the world of basketball. I remember one time my mother said, if they could bring you a bed, I'll bring your lunches and your meals to you so you can just stay there without coming home.
Tell us about influential folks in that early stage of your life. Teachers, first of all.
Teachers, elementary school. I had the pleasure of Jesse Carson for 2 years in grade 5 and grade 6, and Ken True in grade 7, 8. And one of my mentors, both then and later on in life, was Bill Barnett. He was a teacher at Regent School, and he was also our vice principal. The only difficult time I had with Bill one year, he had to give me the strap. And I didn't deserve it, but I had to take it. Yeah. So, Jessie Carson was a wonderful lady, loved her hockey, loved sports, read to us from a sports book every afternoon. We were in a shared class of 5 and 6. In fact, my wife Janice was a student in the grade 6 group. And the girls didn't like Jessie so much because she was reading sports all the time. She devoted a whole blackboard in the classroom for all the boys that played hockey. And she kept track of all our goals and assists and points day after day. And every time you had a big game, and you might have got 3 or 4 goals and a bunch of assists, Jessie had a sports book to give you the next day at school. And I still have 3 of those books that she gave me.
Now, what about outside influences? You mentioned Lloyd.
Lloyd Stackhouse was Mr. Basketball. Lloyd Stackhouse is the reason Midland was so good in basketball for so many years in my era and years to follow. A lot of our coaches that came through MSS knew Stack and participated in the YMCA with Lloyd as well. So he was the biggest influence on us in basketball, and the YMCA is where we grew up. Yeah.
And baseball, hockey had a pretty significant influence too.
Baseball and hockey, Reverend Len Self. I think those from Midland and my vintage and even after knew how important Len Self was to the world of sport for youth in our town. I can tell you in baseball, we played minor baseball, and at the time there might have been 7 or more diamonds in Midland, and every Saturday morning Len Self would show up at the ballpark, drop off 2 balls, 2 bats, a catcher's equipment, and a scorebook, and go to the next site, and go to the next site, and go to the next site. And he came back after the games and picked that equipment all up into his trunk, and he showed up the next week. Same thing happened in minor hockey. He was the go-to guy for minor hockey in Midland, Little NHL, and we produced a lot of strong teams, but it was his influence, and at that time the Lions Club were big sponsors of minor hockey in Midland. So Len Self was the key guy for minor sports in Midland.
Tell us about your secondary school career. Where did you attend?
Secondary school, the MPDHS started out as, and then later on it became MSS, and had a wonderful experiences in secondary school. Had some great teachers, had some great coaches, and some of them are still with us today. I know Doug Swales was my phys ed teacher, I think, in at least 4 years of my high school career, and I think I saw Doug and Betty coming in tonight as I snuck in the side door. Yeah, they're there. Paul Quilty was my geography teacher. We were in Paul's class the day that they announced the assassination of President Kennedy, and he came back to tell us that. And John Hansler, my grade 11 history teacher in ancient and medieval history, the best history class I've ever taken, and John made history exciting, and I enjoyed his time there. Doug Swales coached, John Bearcroft coached, Paul Quilty coached, Mike Jacari coached in our basketball days, and we also were big in track and field in those days.
Now, your basketball career, you were on a couple of championship teams. We've got a picture of one of them, but this is the later one. I think this might be your last year in high school.
Yeah, that's John Bearcroft up in the back corner, our coach of those days. That was our GBSSA championship team. John Janak, you might recognize on the far right.
Far right, yeah.
Who was our manager at the time. And let me see, is anybody up there? Bruce Kosser, I think, is there in the back.
Bruce Kosser's beside
Is Bruce here? He said he might
John
come.
Wilcox.
John Wilcox is there, yes. Ron Church, Max Board, Bob Clayton, Jim Cooper, Axel Dew, Len Self, or Kennedy Self.
The usual suspects.
The usual suspect, yeah. We won, in my high school career, we won the GBSSA championship 4 times. And if I'm not mistaken, Bob Clayton and Max Morden, who were a bit younger than me, I believe they went through high school without a loss in boys basketball.
Yeah.
I was in a group half a year ahead of them, so I would play senior when they finished junior, etc. So it was pretty competitive. And you know what? I bet you that every one of those guys played a little NHL or YMCA basketball on Saturday nights with Lloyd Sack.
Well, some of them are in those pictures. So tell me about other inspirations. You mentioned Austin.
Yeah, Austin Matthews. He was the secretary of the Midland YMCA.
Yeah.
And he did a great job with that. And Lloyd Sackhouse was the physical director. But Austin was a referee above everybody else at the time that I encountered in Simcoe County. I was a player or coach, player mainly. And Austin had such a way about him. He walked in, you knew the game was in hand because he controlled the game, and he did it in such a nice manner. I tried to emulate the way he refereed. I didn't always succeed because I had a different temperament than Austin, but he Somebody knows me. He was my idol in basketball officiating, and I owe a lot to him.
Tell us about summer jobs as you were growing up.
Yeah, we had a number of different jobs in the area. Most of the time was Little Lake Park. I was on the gates back in the days when you had to pay to go into the park if you were not from Midland. Midland got their stickers, and my wife, Janice, worked there as well. So we worked the gates, we worked the boathouse, and then later on I graduated and became one of the crew members, and we raked the beaches, took garbage from the tent park and trailer park, and looked after that kind of stuff. I also worked at Livingston's Menswear a number of summers, clothing, and then they went into sporting goods, and I used to do their window decorations. In fact, after I'd finished working but was teaching, they asked me to come in and do their windows still, so I did that for quite a while. Presently working for Club Link at Rocky Crest in Muskoka. I've been there this will be my 21st season at that one. I also ran the golf camp for the Golf Association of Ontario for 7 summers at Base Borden. And I did work late 60s, early 70s at the Bobby Orr, Mike Walton hockey camp in Aurelia. So I've had busy summers with a variety of jobs. I'm still working on
Now, when you finished high school, you went to Teachers College. Tell us about that experience.
I went to Lakeshore Teachers College. In those days, 1967, you could go to Teachers College out of grade 13, and I chose to go that route, and I went to Lakeshore Teachers College. And it was a rewarding year, and I came back from that to start my teaching career. It was interesting, during the course of the year, John McCullough, who was working at Thompson's furniture and appliance business at the time, saw me, and he said, "Chess," he said, "what are you going to do next year?" I said, "Well, I want to teach." And he said, "Where?" I said, "Well, I think I'll come back to Midland. I'd like to go home." He said, "Oh, well, why don't we arrange for you to meet the board members, so before the interview stage, you'll get to know them." I said, "Well, who's the list?" He showed me the list. I said, "I know them all now, John. They're all friends." And he said, "Well, don't worry about that. You're hired." So on hiring day, we drove up the day before, the Midlanders that were all going to work here, and we went to the Parkview, and that was where the office was, signed our contracts. I never even read it. I just signed it because I had a tee-off time 15 minutes later. So I had a day off to play golf rather than go through the hiring process.
Tell us about what you taught.
When I out of elementary school, I taught a variety of courses, and we had some Rotary. So I did math, I did geography, I did phys ed, did history, and we rotated through the grade 7 and 8 program. And a little bit of everything at the elementary level. Secondary? No, not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Because in between, you went to university. Remember that?
That's right, too. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I want to know why. You've got a good job. Everybody on the board obviously loves you. You're teaching at your original elementary school.
Yeah.
Why'd you go to university?
Well, I was satisfied with my job, and I really enjoyed teaching, and I enjoyed the elementary students. But at that point in time, I was playing basketball when I was at Teachers College. I was playing basketball for a men's team in Toronto and competing around the province. And one of the teams we ran into had a player by the name of Garney Henley on it. Does anybody know Garney Henley? One of the best all-time football players in CFL history. Anyway, I met Garney, and he said, "Why don't you come to school?" I said, "What do you mean? Why don't you come back to school, go to university? And we could really use you at Guelph." So with Garney's impetus and my desire, can I play basketball at that next level, being university? And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So I resigned from my teaching job and got into university and went back to school for 3 years to get my degree.
And where was that?
It was University of Guelph.
University of Guelph. And
by the way, I have to tell you, I finished in 73, and I wanted to stay on for one more year. And my wife said, because I was married, she said, "No, I think you should go home and start working." And I said, "No, I'm going to do one more year." Well, Guelph won the national championship the year after I graduated. So that was a bit of a disappointment.
That's funny. I understand that when you arrived, you thought you might play golf as well as play basketball.
Yeah, I was playing golf here in Midland, and I enjoyed the game, so I was registering, and I found the golf coach, and I said, "I'd like to try out for the golf team." oh, he said, what's your handicap? And I said, I think it's about a 9. He said, oh, our team's pretty good. I don't know if the 9 handicap could make it. He said, well, I said, is it a gross event or a net event? He said, well, it's gross. And I said, well, the handicap doesn't matter. You just peg it up and the best man wins. He said, yeah, okay, come on out and give it a go. Well, I was the second low qualifier, and I made the team. And I played golf for Guelph for 3 seasons, along with the basketball.
And we have a picture here.
Yeah, that's the Griffin, number 34.
Yeah. Now, I have to tell you that there's a couple of parallels here that probably nobody in the room but me will know. My guest last month was James Boyd, the manager of Canada's World Junior Hockey Team, who also went to Guelph. I don't know whether you knew that.
I did not know.
And I suggested to him that my understanding was that if you could spell the name of the sports team, you got your BA. Is there any truth to that?
No, that was only at McMaster Intervention. That's for my buddy Jeff.
So you ended up getting a school letter, 2 school letters in high school, and then a school letter at university. And then, as you explained, Jan made you graduate in 73. So now we're up to resuming your teaching career, and tell us how that comes about.
Yeah, I graduated from Guelph in 73, and I came back, and I wanted to teach secondary school because I was really interested in coaching students to a next level that you couldn't get to at the elementary side. So I put my foot in the door at the secondary school, got interviewed, and got a job teaching 6 courses of English in my first year. That was a great challenge. My degree's in geography, by the way, and I never taught a geography course in my career. But 6 classes of English was the start.
Wow.
And from there, we branched out, and I did some math, I did some phys ed, and Bill Barnett, my mentor, invited me into the guidance department and took a summer course in guidance and stayed with that from 1976 on until retirement in 2000.
And 10 years later, you became the head of the department, or a co-head of the department.
I was co-head of the department with Joyce Frankham, and we took over after Bill had retired in 1986.
Yeah, great. Let's talk about your coaching career, because I know you're very proud of the success that many of your teams had. You started out as an assistant coach, as I understand it.
Yes. When I first started in high school in 1973, the senior girls coach was a lady by the name of, help me now.
Dorothy Enright.
Dorothy Enright, that's right. Some of them may remember her. And Dorothy was a teacher when I was there as a student, so she knew of my basketball background. She said, Chess, would you help me with the girls team? I said, sure, be glad to. And I went to 2 practices and never saw Dorothy again. I became the head coach after 2 games. So I coached girls for a couple of seasons, and then with great help from Doug Andrews, I joined him in basketball. And I think our first year, Doug had a team, I had a team, we shared a team, but the year before, Doug had all 3 teams. And 2 of his students, Jeff Atwood, Bill Hartman, coached the midget team, and Doug had the other 2. So Doug and I shared teams for a few years in the boys program, and we had some good success as well.
Now, during your coaching, you had a couple of very special players on your team.
Yeah, not a lot of parents can attest to the fact that they coached both of their daughters, and it was a real treat to do so. And it was difficult at times too, trying to speak to them in a proper fatherly manner when I'm a coach, and they don't always go together.
You also coach track and field.
To coach track and field as well. One of my, I guess, specialties, the one that I enjoyed the most often was the relay teams. And if you remember watching any Olympic stuff and World Championships, the United States get disqualified in most events because they can't pass the baton. Like, how simple is that? Elementary school, I did the track program, and I used to take the kids out at recesses, and we practiced the baton pass every recess, morning and afternoon, until the local area track meet. And in one given year, we won 5 out of 6 races. in that track meet. And it's not because we were faster, but we knew how to pass the baton. So that was the area that I
It
liked.
just struck me, your comment about in the United States not being able to pass the baton. They don't pass the presidency along very well either.
No, somebody made a drop 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
They were should have been disqualified.
Now, you also were a starter in track and field.
Uh-oh, I know where this one's going.
And so what is it? What do you use to start the races?
Starter, and so my daughter laughing, I think it is. Starter in the track and field, and the gun that we had requires caps. You tear off a cap and you put it into the gun, and there's two caps there. In case you have a false start, you hit the second one and brings everybody back. So I was doing an indoor track meet, York University, and I had the caps pre-ripped up and in my pockets so that I wouldn't have to tear them to put them in. So that was fine, it worked well. And then I was moving from one point to another point for the different race of starting. And I took the gun and I put it in my pocket as I was walking away. But unbeknownst to stupid me, the hosel was back, and as I put it in my pocket, it went off. And the spark from that cap lit up my pocket. So my whole pocket was full of caps, and they all started on fire. And I'm lucky I didn't burn myself, but I sure melted that tracksuit I had. It was the talk of the GBSSA Association for a while.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great story.
Here comes Graham, watch his gun.
Yeah, that's right. You also coached golf.
Yes, I had the golf team at MSS from 1974 till I retired in 2000. Doug Andrews was looking after golf at that time, amongst all the other things he did, and he said, "Chess, I think you should take the golf team," and I was glad to do it. And the kids were glad I did too, because they were worried about Doug. So I looked after the golf team throughout my high school career, and I also ran clinics and camps. I did the camps for the GAO, and I ran clinics in the high school with fundraising for the Special Olympic kids and also for the junior golf program at the Midland Golf and Country Club.
Now, you had some rules about dress codes that I think folks might be interested in.
When I was a student, Doug Swales, you can remember this, we had the school rule was when you had a basketball game, it was shirts and ties. And we always did it, and that was just the way it was. We went on basketball trips. They knew who the kids were from Midland because we were in shirts and ties. Then when I came back to teach at the school a few years later, I didn't see anybody wear shirts and ties. So I spoke to Doug at the time. I said, "Doug, I think we should bring that rule back." He says, "You really?" I said, "Yeah, I think it makes a difference." So we did. We brought it back. The boys would be shirts and ties for games, home and away, and the girls would be skirts or dresses. A little bit of angst from the kids to start with, especially the boys. "Mr. Graham, I don't have a tie." I said, "Okay, I've got 6 in my office. Come and get one." Then they came in and said, "Mr. Graham, I don't know how to tie a tie. Can you do that for me?" So I did that every morning we had a game. And it caught on. They became proud of it. It was part of being an athlete, and they were looked up to in the school. And when we traveled, again, they knew where we were. We were from Midland. The kids were dressed appropriately. So that was life in the world of basketball in my time as a student and as a coach. Some of it still happens today. Not all the time, but some does.
I'm going to switch to a totally different topic because I'm sure there's at least one person in the audience that doesn't know that you performed in some musicals. Tell us about that.
I performed in a couple of 3 musicals altogether. And I think the most enjoyable one was my oldest daughter, Amy. She was in the same musical, so I got to perform and sing and work through this musical with my daughter. And it's a side of life I didn't experience very much until that time, and I don't think they grabbed me for my musical talent, so they just needed some guys to stand in there and mouth the words. But John Farragher and Doug Andrews and I did so, and but working with my daughter and seeing how the theater kids worked in life and the amount of time and practice they put in, I had no idea till I got part of it. I know how much time it takes for a sporting team in basketball, but Didn't see that on drama, but I learned it. It was a wonderful experience. We still have some beautiful pictures of Amy and I together in that show.
That's great. Now, Chester, I don't know how we're going to cover all that you've accomplished in your life. You really have had an exceptional run. I want to talk for a few minutes about some of your community activities, because you've done so much for this town in so many different ways. And so I'm just going to throw out a few ideas and fill in a few blanks. But let's begin with the Martells, because everybody of our generation certainly remembers the Martells.
Friday night was the Martells at the Oddfellows Hall in Midland. And I had the good fortune for 20 years to manage their dance at the Midland Arena under the auspices of the Wiseman's Club. And it was Midland's rock and roll show. Wonderful, wonderful time with a great group who you've had here on your show, Fred.
Yeah, we had them.
They were great.
Yeah. You mentioned the...
And by the way, Larry's here tonight.
Oh, great.
Larry French is here this evening. Good. He came in just in front of us.
You mentioned the Wiseman, and you were a member and a president of that club. You were also on the board of directors at the YMCA. And you also had an association with the CLH Foundation.
Yes. With the Community Living Huronia, I got involved with their group in some fundraising activities, particularly a couple of golf tournaments that we ran to support the cause, and they were very successful with the Special Olympics students.
There were people in this community who would associate you not with all the sports, not with the other things we're going to talk about, but with the Legion because of your role there. And I have a picture here of a couple of special guys.
Yeah, a very proud moment with my father, who was a strong Legion member, past president he was, and involved in the Legion for many, many years. Because of him, I joined the Legion. In fact, this year is my 49th year as a member. And seeing the work that Dad did for the Legion, I got actively involved as a board member on the executive, and served a term as president, and did the cenotaph service a couple of years and chaired the Poppy Committee a couple of seasons as well. All such a worthwhile project, and so honored because of my father.
Staying with the theme of your father for a minute, you organized a very special event, the Frank Graham Cycle Liberation Tour.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Co-chaired the Cycle Liberation Tour with a group out of Chatham. We ran 3 trips to Holland, and it was named after my father. It was the Frank Graham Cycle Liberation Tour. We did bicycle tours with Canadian youth and European youth, Dutch youth on those 3 occasions, 2013, 15, and 17. And my mom and dad attended in 13. We went over as a family in 2010, and that's where it kind of started. But I was so glad to take up the role and promote this. The Dutch people think Canadian veterans are special in every way. It's truly amazing. My first trip, I have to share that I said every day I had a lump in my throat or a tear in my eye for the way they honored my father, and it was special. It was special.
And we have a wonderful picture of your father here.
Best picture. It's on my phone. It's my phone picture. It's the best picture we've ever of my dad.
And we have the whole group here.
Yes, we do, and that's the year we had the whole family over. This is just outside Nijmegen Bridge, and all the family that attended that day is there. Brent's in there, myself, Amy's there, Tyler's there, my nephew, Lloyd's in there, and Mom and Dad.
Now, I want to move, and this, as I say, this is a challenge to try and touch on every base of your life, but we're going to try and do it. We've talked briefly about some of your community activities. I now want to spend a minute talking about your sporting activities, and I'd like to break them down into some of the different ways in which you were engaged in sports beyond what you did in your school days. So let's start with your executive roles, of which you have had numerous, and let's begin with golf.
Golf as a teacher coach, golf with the GAO, golf at the Midland Golf and Country Club. Paul Quilty and I inaugurated a junior program. Pepsi Junior Tour we started 20 years ago, and it still goes. Participated as a competitor in quite a few events individually across North America, Canada, and the U.S. or the British Isles in competitive events.
How about your work with the GBSSA? What role did you play there?
GBSSA is the Georgian Bay Secondary School Athletic Association, and at some point during my career, I joined the executive to assist the program and keep athletics going. And at one point, I became the chairman of that organization.
You did a lot for competitive basketball as an organizer, let alone your work as a coach and as a player. But you co-founded the Spring League, which was a great thing for kids to sort of continue their basketball into the spring. And then you started a summer basketball camp. Tell us about that.
The high school basketball during the evenings was a great success, and Jeff Atwood and I were involved with that, and brought in kids from grade 3 up through grade 8. No, sorry, right into high school. And we had a very, very successful program with the boys, and then the girls started up on the other night of the week. John Farragher got that off the ground. I think John Brown helped him as well. Very successful program. And then we decided, the kids love basketball, let's do a summer camp. So we ran summer camps for basketball, which then broadened into all-around sports, not just basketball. And great success. The kids had a wonderful time, and we did too. It was just extending the life and the importance of basketball in our community.
And you also brought in an elite program for girls basketball called the Mystics.
The Midland Mystics, we had some girls that were very keen and interested in competitive basketball, so we started an OBA club. And my daughter played with that group, and I guess that's how most parents get involved, because your child is there, so if you want to get it done, you get involved. So I did, and loved every minute of it, and that was the Midland Mystics. And by the way, the name is no longer used. They've changed from the Mystics. It's now called the Waves, the Midland Waves, just a recent change.
Well, I want to thank you for that, because I've had 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters so far who have played for first the Mystics and now the Wave. Got a couple playing right now. Curling. How many people knew you were involved with curling?
Well, my wife decided, we decided when we got married that we should do something together. So she said she'd try golf and I'd try curling, and it worked out twice. She didn't like golf because she didn't get to ride on the cart far enough. Well, she didn't hit it far enough. And I tried curling, and I ended up curling twice a week, and I was into bonspiels on the weekends. But I loved curling, and I got involved again at a competitive level for a few years, and then participated in a recreational league later on.
And then you organized curling.
Yes, with others, Ron Lyons in particular. We hosted the OFSA curling on 2 occasions here in Midland for high school students.
Now, we're talking about your sort of administrative roles, and although we're going to come back and talk about the Midland Sports Hall of Fame, you were a founding member of that and the chair for, was it 300 years?
Sometimes it felt like that, but yeah, I've been involved with the Midland Sports Hall of Fame since its inauguration in 1994, and I served on that committee, but for a 2-year hiatus until December of this past year. I've been chairman for 18 or 19 years of those years, and I retired as a chairman and member of the board just last September. If you haven't had a chance, please get to our rec center and have a look at the Sports Hall of Fame. I think the committee and the board have done a great job to promote and make Midland sports an important part of our community.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to just touch briefly on a few things. The 55 and over Ontario Games, you were a chair in this area?
Yeah, I chaired the 55 games.
You got voluntold to do that?
I was voluntold. Nicole Major and Brian Peter talked to me and said, we can do it, but you do a better job. Let's go. So, and they were great people to work with, so it worked out.
Now, you were involved with the Olympics.
Yeah. Back 2010 Vancouver Olympics. Prior to that, I think it was 2004. I was out in British Columbia participating in the Canadian Senior Match Play Golf Tournament. And the guest speaker was the gentleman in charge. He was the chairman of the Olympic Games. And he spoke so enthusiastically and with such commitment and involvement. And I said to Jan, she was with me on that trip, and I said, you know, I want to do that. I want to go and work at the Olympics. I'm going to volunteer. I did, and I got chosen. And I asked for the curling event because Russ Howard was supposed to go, and Russ lost in the final of the Canadians, but I was still there. And did work at the Olympic Games for 2 years, 2 weeks, all at the curling venue.
Good.
In 2010.
You also worked at the Pan Am Games in 2015.
Again, the Pan Am Games in 2015 are in Toronto, and I thought, geez, I had such a nice time when I was in Vancouver. I think I'll put my name in the hat again, and I was successful. And I asked for the golf event, and they said, okay. So I got the golf event for the first week, and I got the basketball event for the second week, sitting at the table, recording scores and stuff. In the golf, I was supposed to look after the driving range, but one of the competitors didn't have a caddy, so they hired me. I caddied for 4 days in the golf tournament, and I was a volunteer, but I got paid as a caddy. It was cute.
That's great.
It was cute.
Now, I know you've had a lot of roles in golf as a competitor, but you also have had an executive position with the Canadian Seniors Golf Association. Now, is that what this red jacket is all about?
That's what the red jacket's about. And
you could go out for dinner in Florida in that, you know.
Well, it's a great jacket. I've worn it every year of the annual event, and I've worn it 1 year of the Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony. They see you coming, and they know you're from Canada.
Yeah, that's great. And also, OFSA, you had an executive role on the...
Yeah, I was asked to resurrect the competitive golf for OFSA, and we got OFSA golf back on the grounds in 2000 and, let me see, I retired in 2001, we got it started. I had retired the year before, but I stayed on, and we got golf off the ground, and golf is now a regular sport in OFSA once again.
Now, I want to move to your officiating for a minute, and we've got a great picture of you here, refereeing.
Barrie ECU and Collingwood.
Tell me, you've been an executive with the refereeing and an assigner and an evaluator. What do those terms mean? So
the executive of the Barrie District Association of Officials, I've been with them since 2000 and when was it? 2019. Sorry, it was 1999. I joined with them, and I've been the assigner for the Barrie board. So I'm responsible for getting officials to all games of basketball in Simcoe County above the elementary level. Another official does the elementary level. So it's time-consuming, but enjoyable. I still keep my active hand in it. The other part, Fred, was...
You're an assigner and an evaluator.
An evaluator. After I retired, I decided I would help new officials, so I became an evaluator across the province. So I would attend OFSA events and evaluate all the officials and rank them and move the better officials onto the bronze and gold medal games. And I did that for 19 years after my retirement. And it was just a chance of giving back to what others had done for me.
And in spite of the hot pants experience, you continued to be a starter in track and field.
Yes, I did.
With a tracksuit without pockets.
I didn't put caps in my pocket anymore.
Now, I am conscious of the time, and the time is not our friend here, so I want to just sort of highlight some of the things you were involved in sports as a participant, because I think many of the people who are here will be familiar with that. So we certainly know about your golfing experience, and you've been playing at the Midland Golf and Country Club, as I understand it, since '68.
Correct.
And you've been the club champion 6 times and the senior club champion 5 times, and the senior champion two times. That's over 90, is that the...
Not quite. It feels like it right now, but it's the over 70 crowd.
Good for you. Provincially, you've had some successes too in golf.
I have, Fred. I at the senior level particularly, I've been second. I won the Ontario Senior Championship 2003, and I also
I think that's where this picture is.
yes,
isn't it?
that was that trophy, and that same year I was Ontario Senior Mixed Champion, and I've been, and since then I've finished seventh on 2 other occasions, one here in Midland, and we held the Ontario Seniors back in 2012.
I want to move to baseball for a moment. We have a great picture of you here.
Look at the hair. Wow.
You tried out for the Indians when you were quite young.
Yeah, I was 16, and there was no baseball for 16-year-olds in Midland, and I thought I'd give it a shot and try it for the only team in town was the Indians, and I made the team.
And that team went on to win some provincial championships.
We had three provincial championships at the intermediate level with the Midland Indians.
Now, you also had some pro tryouts in there somewhere.
I did. I had 2 occasions of tryouts, San Francisco Giants and St. Louis Cardinals was the other team that I had a chance at, and enjoyed the experience, but didn't get the call to go further.
Well, it's a fair bit of competition there, too.
I was a pitcher shortstop, and unless you can throw 95 up, you haven't got a chance, and they've got 100 shortstops in the United States. So.
And the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, that's true. Later on, that became a big source.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of your recognitions. We could spend the rest of the evening talking about the number of times you've been elected to the Sports Hall of Fame. How many times is that now?
6.
6. And I think we have some of the teams here. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to put some pictures up. Can you try and identify what the team is? This is a quiz, okay?
Oh, boy.
Okay. Who's this? Oh, you don't know that one?
Midland Indians, OBA champions.
Yeah.
That's our travel team. We went to the United States, to Tucson, Arizona. John Faragher, head coach, and we won the Tournament Championship there with teams from many countries around the world. This is one of our hockey teams. In the back left-hand corner is a gentleman with the name of Joe Houston, and Joe is here tonight. He called me this morning. He said, "What's the weather like?" I said, "Get here. It's beautiful." But that was another one of our championship teams in Little NHL. This was our championship team. We won the championship this year in Parry Sound, and that team was to be inducted in 2020, but because of COVID, we've bumped it, and this team will go in this fall in 2022.
And that picture is 1955-56.
Is that year?
Yeah. Now, Chester, you also worked with an organization called Bun's Kids that I'm very familiar with, and I just wonder if you could quickly tell us what it was all about and what your role was.
Bun's Kids was an organization of community people who raised funds to allow students or people, boys and girls, who couldn't afford the fees for sport. And we would fundraise in different ways, usually through a golf tournament, and provide the funds for those kids who wanted to play. We were able to make sure they got on. We bought equipment as well as paid the fees for their activity.
And you were in charge of this very special situation. What was this event?
2004 was the 100th anniversary of the Midland High School, and I chaired the organization committee for that. It was a great success. And we raised quite a bit of funds, which we still offer a scholarship to a graduating student, but we also had some funds, and we purchased the score clocks and the scoring table for the new high school when it opened. So those are part of our committee people, Jeff Atwood, John Faragher, Dave Chambers, and Mrs. Bissell, I think, is there, and the principal of the time.
Now, that sort of brings us up to your retirement. When did you retire from teaching?
Retired in 2000.
And since then, you've had a job at a golf course.
Imagine.
How ironic.
Imagine working at a golf course.
Where is that, Chester?
I worked for Club Link Properties at a golf course called Rocky Crest in Muskoka, just north of MacTier.
And I think we've got some of the folks from there with us this evening.
I think there are. I think Mark is here. Mark, are you here? I can't see any hand, but I think he was coming tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Club Link, Rocky Crest bought a few tickets for the evening show.
I think you mentioned that you were a camp director at junior golf, and you did mention some of the basketball things that you did. I wasn't aware of this, but are you currently a panelist for Score Golf magazine? Or is
That's correct, yes.
And what's that all about?
I've been with Score Golf for about 9 years now, and my job is to travel around Canada, play a golf course, and do a write-up and an analysis of the program for Score Golf. And you'll see on Score Golf it's called the Top 100 or the Top 59 public courses. So that's the magazine that I report to, and I do online assessments for them. I've been doing that for 8 or 9 years. It's a great job. It's not even a job, really.
Now, I wish we had more time, but we don't. So if you'll allow me, I'm just going to mention some of the other recognitions that you've received. You received the OABO Award of Merit twice for your service to local and provincial basketball. The high school, you were the MVP, Athlete of the Year, 2 school letters. You received the Distinguished Leader Service Award from the Midland YMCA Leadership Corps. You won the Midland Winterfest Sports Award. You were the first recipient of the Len Self Youth Foundation Coach of the Year. You won the Pete Beach Award. What's that? Pete
Beach was a big organizer at OFSA, who really founded OFSA and got a lot of the programs going, and they honor a member from their associations each year for their dedication to sport.
And you won an award for your contributions to the GBSSA. You won the OABO Award 4 times, the IAABO Certificate of Service Award twice, and you are now a lifetime member of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I want to just take a minute and talk about influences in your life. You've mentioned Jesse Carson. You mentioned Lloyd Stackhouse, and we've got a picture here of a pretty significant team.
This was our YMCA team, and that team won a provincial championship for YMCA basketball.
Now, although you made that team, Chester, I do have a picture of the All-Star team here. Oh, I don't see you in it.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Fred's in that picture.
Oh, how about that?
Oh, my.
How did that happen? You've mentioned Austin and Paul Quilty and Bill Barnett. Les Marcel was another person.
Les Marcel was my golf mentor. Never had a lesson with him, but any day I come off the golf course, he'd say, what was good and bad today? I'd tell him the bad. He said, okay, hit 3 balls. He'd say, here's what you're doing wrong. And it was fixed. Yeah.
Special. Let's get to the family. Most important thing. Here's the Graham family.
Here we all are back in October, celebrating my mother's 96th birthday.
Wonderful.
And all the boys are there, and our partners and spouses, and my granddaughter.
And we're going to
4.
Got a picture of her coming up in a minute. Now, this was a special event. Look at those kids.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, your hair's longer than hers.
It was nice in those days.
Well, Jan says that she has spent the longest 49 years of her life with you.
That was number 49, last July.
Yeah, and introduce us to these young ladies. Oh, look at this.
Oh, my.
Do you know this picture?
I haven't seen that one for a while, but that was our square dance program at Regent School.
You're back center. The teacher has her hand on you to keep you under control. The teacher is actually
Helen Laidlaw,
Jan's aunt.
That's correct.
And Jan, you have your back to Jan right now. I'm not sure how long that lasted. Right? Isn't she behind you?
I think so.
Yeah.
And Helen was my grade 2 teacher.
Yeah. Now, tell us who this is.
that's the pair, and my oldest daughter, Amy, and Frank, at one of the Legion Remembrance Day dinners. And my youngest, Carrie, with Grandpa. And my wife and our new 4-year-old granddaughter, Kendall.
Now, while we're talking about pictures, my understanding is that there was a picture of you on the inside of the door at your house.
Yeah. I was a pretty active parent and coaching and teaching and other things that I did. And I wasn't home a lot. So one day my wife put an 8x10 picture of me on the inside of the door and said, girls, if this guy knocks on the door, let him in, it's your dad. and it worked. It worked. It worked.
So let's conclude just with this question. What does the future hold for Chester Graham?
Future holds for me is good health is number one. I hope to grow older with my children and my granddaughter for a long time, and longevity is pretty good in our family. I also hope to return to a competitive player in the world of golf and continue to work in the community as I see a need or as I see a place that I can fit into.
Well, you certainly have contributed greatly. Chester, I'm just going to take a minute to thank some folks, and then we're going to come back and ask you some questions. So, first of all, I want to thank our friends at Rogers Community Television who tape these programs, and this will then be available in a month or so on Rogers Television, and it'll be available on demand on the website of the Midland Cultural Center and the website of Rogers, and it's also on YouTube if you want to find it there. I want to thank the staff of the Midland Cultural Center and our wonderful volunteers who helped you into the hall here this evening, and special thanks to Glenn, who is in the control room, who does a great job with our technical side. Thanks to our season sponsors, Kathy Bales, Michelle Deschamps, and Jeff Holloway of RBC Dominion Securities. Special thanks, Todd, to you, to Todd Lalonde of Desjardins Insurance for being our program sponsor. I do want to take just a moment, Chester, and thank our A Day in the Life team. We have a group of folks who help put these programs together and who tell me what I do wrong each month. So thanks to John Farragher, who's not feeling very well right now, to Brian McKell, who's feeling very well and in Florida, to Lorianne Clancy and Jennifer Parker, to Dan Broom and Michelle Thibault, we thank all of you for your contribution to this program. And Chester, I really want to thank you on behalf of our live audience here, and also on behalf of our television audience, but also on behalf of our community. You have had an amazing career, both as a teacher, as a coach, as a referee, as an organizer, but all of the other organizations you've been involved in. Midland has a great debt that it owes to you, so thank you for all you've done for our community.
Thank you, Fred.